friends, and welcome to Sleepy Time Tales, a podcast aimed at helping you to get a good night's sleep. Do you find your mind plagued with the stresses of modern life, especially when the lights are out and you're trying to get a restful night? Does your spinning mind keep you awake? Follow my voice down the path towards a good night's rest. Listen to me tell a story that will keep your mind from wandering to your daytime problems, the ones you can't solve right now and will be easier to solve well rested. Listen to my voice and allow yourself to drift, following the twists and turns of the story, but slowly letting go and drifting into sleep. Before we get on with the show, I'd like to take a couple of minutes of your time. This show is brought to you by the direct financial support of listeners like you, mostly on Patreon, but every now and then people throw a few dollars in my way via Buy Me a Coffee or the PayPal tip jar on the website. There have been some lean times in the last couple of years, and I wouldn't have been able to keep the show going without the support. And I'm grateful to those listeners who have the means to help fund it, to keep it going, and help me to reach new audiences. So if you're making use of Sleepy Time Tales regularly to help you to deal with sleeplessness, and you have the urge to support the show, and most importantly, if you have the means, please check out patreon.com/sleepytimetales, go to the link in the show notes or from the website, to get access to those bonus episodes, as well as to keep the show going out to those who need it. But times have been hard for everybody. It's been a very rough year and a half so far, and even longer for some people. So due to mostly financial considerations, I have lost a few patrons in the last couple of months, and because it is tough for people out there. But if you have a little bit of disposable income, and you're willing to support the show, and you would like to, now would be a good time if you're considering joining and signing up. In fact, it's a very good time to sign up, because I am offering a little bit of an incentive. If I can get to $100 a month on the Patreon and stay there, I will do a monthly bonus poetry reading to all patrons at all levels. So if you'd like me reading some poetry to you every month, you can back at any level to help hit that goal. And of course, that's in addition to the early release special edits and already existing minisodes and megasodes that are available there already, depending on the level at which you sign up. To that point, I'd like to welcome new patron Adam, who signed up last week. Thanks so much, Adam, for joining the Sleepy Time Tales family and supporting the work that I do. And of course, if you're more inclined to make a once-off contribution, because a monthly commitment may be a little bit much for many people, then take a look at buymeacoffee.com/sleepytimetales, also linked in the show notes. And there you can help out the show without needing to make any kind of long-term commitment. I also had a supporters shirt, throw something in the tip jar there. Thanks, Maniko, for your support and your generosity, and of course your kind words. But another huge way to help the show, finances are good, but reaching people is arguably even better, is to simply spread the word. If there is someone in your life who you think will benefit from listening to Sleepy Time Tales, just let them know. If you recommend the show on social media, make sure to tag me in so that I can see and I can thank you. That's at Sleepy Time Tales on Instagram or Twitter. And of course, last but not least, I gotta shout out the music, which is Sweet Night and Friends by Kumiko. Their music is available on their website at loyaltyfreakmusic.com, and I've linked it in the show notes, as they've got some very cool stuff that they release under various names that I recommend you checking out. I've gone a little bit long tonight, so thanks for listening, and let's get back to the show. So what exactly is Sleepy Time Tales? What is it for? What is this strange idea, this podcast that you're supposed to fall asleep to? But lack of sleep is a health crisis in the 21st century, and this is a podcast that is intended to help those that it can to get a restful night. Do you find yourself lying awake at night, mind spinning and emotions in turmoil with anxieties of 21st century life? Do you wake up in the middle of the night and find yourself not quite able to doze back off at 3 a.m.? I'm here to help. My name is Dave, and I'm your narrator, here to help you into a restful night. Sleepy Time Tales is intended to be used as a distraction to what keeps you awake at night, or sometimes background noise, or maybe even just some kind of company. That's why I make these episodes quite long, so that I'm here for you without any pressure of the end coming. As far as I know, there's a couple of different ways to engage with the show. For me, I need something to focus on. A story or an event that lets me keep my mind on a specific point, to stop it from spinning out into stress and anxieties. To focus just enough not to resist the embrace of a night's sleep when it comes for me. Some people though may need something a little bit different, simply some kind of background. Some people like white noise, some like the ocean, some like the wind in the trees, and some maybe would just like some boring dude telling them a story. But however you're engaging with the show and whatever you really like about it, the important thing is you don't try to force the sleep. Just, as I'm talking, keep a light mental grip on the thread of the story and allow the need for sleep to come for you. Now obviously I'm hopeful that you're going to be asleep before I get to the end of the episode, but don't feel pressurized. It may not work on the first night. Maybe it'll take a few nights for you to get used to listening to my voice. Maybe my accent is strange to you. Maybe one episode just isn't long enough. Or maybe your problem isn't going to sleep. Maybe your problem is waking up in the middle of the night. One thing that I do recommend people try, because it's what I do, is what you do is playlist a bunch of episodes of the show, enough to play through the whole night, once you've downloaded them, and then just start them and let them go. That way, if the stream is still running when you wake up at 3 a.m. and staring at the ceiling, and your earbuds have fallen out, just pop them back in and allow yourself to go straight back to sleep again. Or maybe something different. Maybe you wake up before your alarm, 30 minutes or 60 minutes or so. In fact, that happens to me quite a lot, and I treat it the same as if I woke up at 3 a.m. Earbuds in, listen, fall back asleep, and sometimes have the best 30 minutes or 60 minutes of my night. Because there's something about allowing yourself deep relaxation right before the alarm that's restful and relaxing on a whole new level. But that's the main thing. It's very important that you try to relax. If you're new to the show and prone to late nights lying staring at the ceiling, this will probably seem strange to you. So relax and give it a chance. Because I'm here to work with you. To create a safe space, a cocoon in which you can curl up and allow nature to take its course. So if you're still with me, thank you for staying. If you're already asleep, we'll chat again soon. And of course, you aren't hearing me, except maybe in a dream. Teacup reading and fortune telling by tea leaves by Highland Seer. Preface. It is somewhat curious that among the great number of books on occult science and all forms of divination which have been published in the English language, there should be none dealing exclusively with teacup reading and the art of telling fortunes by the tea leaves. Notwithstanding that is one of the most common forms of divination practiced by the peasants of Scotland, and by village fortune tellers in all parts of this country. In many of the cheaper handbooks to fortune telling by cards or in other ways, only brief references to the teacup method are given, but only too evidently by writers who are merely acquainted with it by hearsay, and have not made a study of it for themselves. This is probably because the reading of teacups affords but little opportunity to the seer of extracting money from credulous folk, a reason why it was never adopted by the soothsayers who preferred the more obviously lucrative methods of crossing the palm with gold or silver, or of charging a fee for manipulating a pack of playing cards. Reading the cup is essentially a domestic form of fortune-telling to be practiced at home, and with success by anyone who will take the trouble to master the simple rules laid down in these pages. And it is in the hope that it will provide a basis for much innocent and inexpensive amusement and recreation around the tea table at home, as well as for a more serious study of an interesting subject, that this little guidebook to the science is confidently offered to the public. Chapter 1. Introduction to the Art of Divination from Tea Leaves. It seems highly probable that at no period of this world's history have there been so many persons as there are at the present moment, anxious to ascertain in advance, if that be humanly possible, a knowledge of at least what today may bring forth. The incidence of the greatest of all wars, which has resulted in sparse news of those from whom they are separated, and produces a state of uncertainty as to what the future holds in store for each of the inhabitants of the British Empire, is, of course, responsible for this increase in a perfectly sane and natural curiosity, with its inevitable result, a desire to employ any form of divination in the hope that some light may haply be cast upon the darkness and obscurity of the future. It is unfortunately the case, as records of the police courts have recently shown, that the creation of this demand for foreknowledge of coming events, or for information as to the well-being of distant relatives and friends, has resulted in the abundant supply of the want by scores of pretend fortune-tellers and diviners of the future, who, trading upon the credulity and anxieties of their unfortunate fellow countrywomen, seek to make a living at their expense. Now, it is an axiom which centuries of experience have shown to be as sound as those of Euclid himself, that the moment the taint of money enters into the business of reading the future, the accuracy and credit of the fortune told disappears. The fortune teller no longer possesses the singleness of mind or purposes necessity to a clear reading of the symbols he or she consults. The amount of the fee is the first consideration, and this alone is sufficient to obscure the mental vision and to bias the judgment. This applies to the very highest and most conscientious of fortune-tellers, persons really adept at foreseeing the future when no taint of monetary reward intervenes. The greater number, however, of so-called fortune-tellers are but charlatans, with the merest smattering of partly assimilated knowledge of some form of divination or character reading, whether by the cards, coins, dice, dominoes, hands, crystals, or in any other pretended way. With these, the taint of the money they hope to receive clouds such mind or intuition as they may possess, and it follows that their judgments and prognostications have precisely the same value as the nostrums of the quack medicine vendor. They are very different from the Highlander who, coming to the door of his cottage or bothy at dawn, regards steadfastly the signs and omens he notes in the appearance of the sky, the actions of animals, the flight of birds, and so forth, and derives therefrom a foresight into the coming events of the opening day. They differ also from the spaewife who, manipulating the cup from which she has taken her morning draught of tea, looks at the various forms and shapes the leaves and dregs have taken, and deduces thence such simple hoary prognostications as the name of the person from whom Posty will presently bring up the glen a letter, or a parcel, or a remittance of money, or as to whether she is likely to go a journey or to hear news from across the sea, or to obtain a good price for the hose she has knitted, or for the chickens or eggs she is sending to the storekeeper. Here the taint of money payment is altogether absent, and no Highland spaewife or seer would dream of taking a fee for looking into the future on behalf of another person. It follows, therefore, that provided he or she is equipped with the requisite knowledge and some skill and intuition, the persons most fitted to tell correctly their own fortune are themselves, because they cannot pay themselves for their own prognostications, and the absence of a monetary taint consequently leaves the judgment unbiased. Undoubtedly one of the simplest, most inexpensive, and as the experience of nearly 3 centuries has proved, most reliable forms of divination within its own proper limits, is that of reading fortunes in teacups. Although it cannot be of the greatest antiquity, seeing that tea was not introduced into Britain until the middle of the 17th century, and for many years thereafter was too rare and costly to be used by the great bulk of the population. The practice of reading the tea leaves doubtless descends from the somewhat similar form of divination, known to the Greeks as kotobos, by which fortune and love was discovered by the particular splash made by wine thrown out of a cup into a metal basin. A few spaewives still practice this method by throwing out the tea leaves into the saucer, but the reading of the symbols as they originally formed in the cup is undoubtedly the better method. Any person after a study of this book, and by carefully following the principles here laid down, may with practice quickly learn to read the hoary fortunes that the tea leaves foretell. The teacup fortunes only horary, or dealing with the events of the hour, or the succeeding 24 hours at furthest. The immediately forthcoming events are those which cast their shadows, so to speak, within the circle of the cup. In this way the tea leaves may be consulted once a day, and many of the minor happenings of life foreseen with considerable accuracy, according to the skill in discerning the symbols and the intuition required to interpret them, which may be possessed by the seer. Adepts like the Highland peasant woman can and do foretell events that subsequently occur, and with remarkable accuracy. Practice and the acquirement of a knowledge of the signification of the various symbols is all that is necessary in order to become proficient, and to tell one's fortune and that of one's friends with skill and judgment. There is, of course, a scientific reason for all forms of divination practiced without hope or promise of reward. Each person carries in himself his own destiny. Events do not happen to people by chance, but are invariably the result of some past cause. For instance, in the last years, a man becomes a soldier who had never intended to pursue a military career. This does not happen to him by chance, but because of the prior occurrence of a European war in which his country was engaged. The outbreak of war is similarly the result of other causes, none of which happened by chance, but were founded by still remoter occurrences. It is the same with the future. That which a person does today as a result of something that happened in the past will in its turn prove the cause of something that will happen at some future date. The mere act of doing something today sets in motion forces that in process of time will inevitably bring about some entirely unforeseen event. This event is not decreed by fate or providence, but by the person who by committal of some act unconsciously compels the occurrence of some future event which he does not foresee. In other words, a man decrees his own destiny and shapes his own ends by his actions, whether Providence rough-hewn them or not. Now, this being so, it follows that he carries his destiny with him, and the more powerful his mind and intellect, the more clearly is this seen to be the case. Therefore, it is possible for a person's mind, formed as the result of past events over which he had no control, to foresee by an effort what will occur in the future as a result of acts deliberately done. Since it is given to but few, and that not often of intention, to see actually what is about to happen in a vision or by means of what is called the second sight, some machinery must be provided in the form of symbols from which an interpretation of the future can be made. It matters little what the method or nature of the symbols chosen is, dice or dominoes, cards or tea leaves. What matters is that the person shaking the dice, shuffling the dominoes, cutting the cards or turning the teacup, is by these very acts transferring from his mind, where they lie hidden even from himself, the shadows of coming events, which by his own actions in the past he has already predetermined shall occur in the future. It only remains for someone to read and interpret these symbols correctly in order to ascertain something of what is likely to happen. And it is here that the singleness of purpose and freedom from ulterior motives are necessary, in order to avoid error and to form a true and clear judgment. This is the serious and scientific explanation of the little understood and less comprehended action of various forms of divination, having for their object the throwing of a little light upon the occult. Of all these forms, perhaps divination by tea leaves is the simplest, truest, and most easily learned. Even if the student is disinclined to attach much importance to what he sees in the cup, the reading of the tea leaves forms a sufficiently innocent and amusing recreation for the breakfast or tea table. And the man who finds a lucky sign such as an anchor or tree in his cup, or the maiden who discovers a pair of heart-shaped groups of leaves in conjunction with a ring, will be suffering no harm in thus deriving encouragement for the future, even should they attach no importance to their occurrence, but merely treat them as an occasion for harmless mirth and badinage. Whether, however, the tea leaves be consulted seriously or in mere sport and love of amusement, the method set forth in succeeding chapters should be carefully followed, and the significations of the pictures and symbols formed in the cup scrupulously accepted as correct, for reasons which are explained in a subsequent chapter. Chapter 2. Ritual and Method of Using the Teacup. The best kind of tea to use if teacup reading is to be followed is undoubtedly China tea. The original tea imported into this country is still the best for all purposes. Indian tea and the cheaper mixtures contain so much dust and so many fragments of twigs and stems as often to be quite useless for the purpose of divination, as they will not combine to form pictures or symbols clearly to be discerned. The best shape of cup to employ is one with a wide opening at the top, and a bottom not too small. Cups with almost perpendicular sides are very difficult to read, as the symbols cannot be seen properly, and the same may be said of small cups. A plain surfaced breakfast cup is perhaps the best to use, and the interior should be white and have no pattern printed upon it, as this confuses the clearness of the picture presented by the leaves, as does any fluting or eccentricity of shape. The ritual to be observed is very simple. The tea drinker should drink the contents of his or her cup so as to leave only about half a teaspoonful of the beverage remaining. He should next take the cup by the handle in his left hand, rim upwards, and turn it 3 times from left to right in one fairly rapid swinging movement. He should then very slowly and carefully invert it over the saucer and leave it there for a minute, so as to permit of all moisture draining away. If he approaches the oracle at all seriously, he should during the whole of these proceedings concentrate his mind upon his future destiny, and will that the symbols forming under the guidance of his hand and arm, which in their turn are, of course, directed by his brain, shall correctly represent what is destined to happen to him in the future. If, however, he or she is not in such deadly earnest, but merely indulging in a harmless pastime, such an effort of concentration need not be made. The willing is of course akin to wishing when cutting the cards in another time-honored form of fortune-telling. The cup to be read should be held in the hand and turned about in order to read the symbols without disturbing them, which will not happen if the moisture has been properly drained away. The handle of the cup represents the consultant and is akin to the house in divination by the cards. By this fixed point judgment is made as to events approaching the house of the consultant, journeys away from home, messages or visitors to be expected, relative distance, and so forth. The advantage of employing a cup instead of a saucer is here apparent. The bottom of the cup represents the remoter future foretold, the side events not so distant, and matters symbolized near the rim, those that may be expected to occur quickly. The nearer the symbols approach the handle in all three cases, the nearer to fulfillment will be the events prognosticated. If the symbol ritual has been correctly carried out, the tea leaves, whether many or few, will be found distributed about the bottom and sides of the cup. The fortune may be equally well told whether there are many leaves or few, but of course there must be some, and therefore the tea should not have been made in a pot provided with one of the patent arrangements that stops the leaves from issuing from the spout when the beverage is poured into the cups. There is nothing to beat one of the plain old-fashioned earthenware teapots, whether for the purpose of preparing a palatable beverage, or for that of providing the means of telling a fortune. Chapter 3. General principles to be observed in reading the cup. The interior of the teacup, when it is ready to be consulted, will exhibit the leaves scattered apparently in a fortuitous and accidental manner, but really in accordance with the muscular action of the left arm as controlled by the mind, at whose bidding it has worked. These scattered leaves will form lines and circles of dots or small leaves, and dust combined with stems and groups of leaves in larger or smaller patches, apparently in meaningless confusion. Careful notice should now be taken of all the shapes and figures formed inside the cup. These should be viewed from different positions so that their meaning becomes clear. It is not very easy at first to see what the shapes really are, but after looking at them carefully they should become plainer. The different shapes and figures in the cup must be taken together in a general reading. Bad indications will be balanced by good ones. Some good ones will be strengthened by others, and so on. It is now the business of the seer, whether the consultant or some adept to whom he has handed the cup to be read, to find some fairly close resemblance between the groups formed by the leaves and various natural or artificial objects. This part of the performance resembles the looking for pictures in the fire as practiced by children in nurseries and schoolrooms, and occasionally by people of a larger growth. Actual representations of such things as trees, animals, birds, anchors, crowns, coffins, flowers, and so forth, may by the exercise of the powers of observation and imagination be discerned, as well as squares, triangles, and crosses. Each of these possesses as a symbol some fortunate or unfortunate signification. Such signs may be either large or small, and their relative importance must be judged according to their size. Supposing the symbol observed should be indicating the receipt of a legacy, for instance. If small, it would mean that the inheritance would be but trifling. If large, that it would be substantial. While if leaves grouped to form a resemblance to a coronet accompany the sign for a legacy, a title would probably descend upon the consultant at the same time. The meaning of all the symbols of this nature likely to be formed by the fortuitous arrangement of leaves in a teacup is fully set forth in the concluding chapter, and it is unnecessary therefore to enlarge upon this branch of the subject. There are, however, several points of a more general character that must be considered before it is possible to form an accurate judgment of the fortune displayed. For instance, isolated leaves or groups of a few leaves or stems frequently form letters of the alphabet or numbers. These letters and numbers possess meanings which must be sought in conjunction with other signs. If near a letter L is seen a small square or oblong leaf, or if a number of very small dots form such a square or oblong, it indicates that a letter or parcel will be received from somebody whose surname, not Christian name, begins with an L. If the combined symbol appears near the handle and near the rim of the cup, the letter is close at hand. If in the bottom, there will be a delay in its receipt. If the sign of the letter is accompanied by the appearance of a bird flying towards the house, it means a telegraphic dispatch. If flying away from the house, the consultant will have to send the telegram. Birds flying always indicate news of some sort. Again, the dust in the tea and the smaller leaves and stems frequently form lines of dots. These are significant of a journey, and their extent and direction show its length, and the point of the compass towards which it will extend. The handle for this purpose being considered as due south. If the consultant is at home and lies lean from the handle round the cup and back to the handle, it shows that he will return. If they end before getting back to the handle, and especially if a resemblance to a house appears where the journey line ends, it betokens removal to another place. If the consultant be away from home, lines leading to the handle show a return home, and if free from crosses and other symbols of delay, that return will be speedy. Otherwise, it will be postponed. The occurrence of a numeral may indicate the number of days, or if in connection with a number of small dots grouped around the sign of a letter, a present or a legacy, the amount of the remittance in the former, the number of presents to be expected, or the amount of the legacy coming. Dots surrounding a symbol always indicate money coming in some form or other, according to the nature of the symbol. It will be seen that to read a fortune in the teacup with any real approach to accuracy, and a serious attempt to derive a genuine forecast from the cup, the seer must not be in a hurry. He or she must not only study the general appearance of the horoscope displayed before him, and decide upon the resemblance of the groups of leaves to natural or artificial objects, each of which possesses a separate significance, but must also balance the bad and good, the lucky and unlucky symbols, and strike an average. For instance, a large bouquet of flowers, which is a fortunate sign, would outweigh in importance one or two minute crosses, which in this case would merely signify some small delay in the realization of success, whereas one large cross in a prominent position would be a warning of disaster that would be little, if at all mitigated, by the presence of small isolated flowers, however lucky individually these might be. This is on the same principle as that by which the astrologers judge a horoscope, when, after computing the aspects of the planets towards each other, the sun and moon, the ascendant, midheaven, and the significator of the native, they balance the good aspects against the bad, the strong against the weak, the benefics against the malefics, and so strike an average. In a similar way, the lucky and unlucky signs in a teacup may be balanced one against the other, and an average struck. And in this connection it may be pointed out that symbols which stand out clearly and distinctly by themselves are of more importance than those with difficulty to be discerned amid cloud-like masses of shapeless leaves. When these clouds obscure or surround a lucky sign, they weaken its force, and vice versa. In teacup reading, however, the fortune told must be regarded chiefly as of a horary character, not, as with an astrological horoscope, that of a whole life. And where it is merely indulged in as a light amusement to while away a few minutes after a meal, such nicety of judgment is not called for. The seer will just glance at the cup, note the sign for a letter from someone, or that for a journey to the seaside or proximity of a gift or an offer of marriage, and pass on to another cup. It should be observed that some cups, when examined, will present no features of interest, will be so clouded and muddled that no clear meaning is to be read in them. In such a case, the seer should waste no time over them. Either the consultant has not concentrated his or her attention upon the business in hand when turning the cup, or his destiny is so obscured by the indecision of his mind, or the vagueness of his ideas, that it is unable to manifest itself by symbols. Persons who consult the tea leaves too frequently often find this muddled state of things to supervene. Probably once a week will be often enough to look into the future, although there is something to be said for the Highland custom of examining the leaves of the morning cup of tea in order to obtain some insight into the events the day may be expected to bring forth. To look in the cup 3 or 4 times a day, as some silly folk do, is simply to ask for contradictory manifestations and consequent bewilderment, and is symptomatic of the idle, empty, bemused minds that prompt such ill-advised conduct. Of course, the teacup may be employed solely for the purpose of asking what is known to astrologers as a hoary question, such as, for instance, shall I hear from my lover in France and when? In this case, the attention of the consultant when turning the cup must be concentrated solely on this single point, and the seer will regard the shapes taken by the tea leaves solely in this connection, in order to give a definite and satisfactory answer. An example of this class of horary question is included among the illustrations. Figure 10. Chapter 4. An alphabetical list of symbols with their significations. A question that will very naturally occur to persons of an inquiring turn of mind in regards to the figures and symbols seen in the teacup is, why should one symbol necessarily signify one thing and not something quite different? The answer, of course, is that the meanings given to the symbols are purely arbitrary, and that there is no scientific reason why one should signify one thing and not another. There is no real reason why the ace of clubs, for instance, should not be considered the house card instead of the 9 of hearts, or why the double 4 in dominoes should signify an invitation instead of a wedding like the double 3. It is obviously necessary, however, in attempting to read the future by means of any kind of symbols, whether pips, dots, numbers, or anything else, to fix beforehand upon some definite meaning to be attributed to each separate symbol, and to hold fast to this meaning in all events. In the case of tea leaves, where the symbols are not mere conventional signs or numbers, but actual figures like the pictures seen in the fire or those envisaged in dreams, there is no doubt that the signification of most of them is the result of empirical experience. Generations of spae wives have found that the recurrence of a certain figure in the cup has corresponded with the occurrence of a certain event in the future lives of the various persons who have consulted them. And this empirical knowledge has been handed down from seer to seer, until a sufficient deposit of tradition has been formed, from which it has been found possible to compile a detailed list of the most important symbols, and to attach to each a traditional meaning. These significations have been collected by the writer, in a desultory manner, over a long period of years, chiefly from spae wives in both Highland and Lowland Scotland, but also in Cornwall, on Dartmoor, in Middle England, in Gloucestershire and Northumberland. Occasionally it has been found that a different meaning is attributed to a symbol by one seer from that given it by another. In such cases, an alternative signification might of course have been given here. But as the essence of all such significations is that they shall be stable and unvarying, the writer has fixed upon whichever meaning has been most widely attributed to the symbol, or appears to have the best authority for its adoption, so that the element of doubt may be excluded. Although included in the alphabetical order in the list which follows, there are certain figures and symbols which are of so common occurrence and bear such definite interpretation that it is advisable to refer to them here in detail. Certain symbols are invariably signs of approaching good fortune. Certain others have threatened ill luck. Among the former may be mentioned triangles, stars, trefoil or clover leaves, anchors, trees, garlands and flowers, bridges or arches and crowns. Among the latter, coffins, clouds, crosses, serpents, rats and mice, and some wild beasts, hourglasses, umbrellas, church steeples, swords and guns, ravens, owls and monkeys are all ominous symbols. Symbols and significations. Abbey, future ease and freedom from worry. Acorn, improvement in health, continued health, strength, and good fortune. Aircraft, unsuccessful projects. Anchor, a lucky sign, success in business and constancy in love. If cloudy, the reverse may be read. Angel, good news, especially good fortune in love. Apes, secret enemies. Apples, long life, gained by commerce. Apple tree, change for the better. Arch, a journey abroad. Arrow, a disagreeable letter from the direction in which it comes. Ass, misfortune overcome by patience or a legacy. Axe, difficulties overcome. Badger, long life and prosperity as a bachelor. Basket, an addition to the family. Bat, fruitless journeys or tasks. Bear, a long period of travel. Beasts, other than those mentioned, foretell misfortune. Birds, a lucky sign, good news of flying, if addressed a fortunate journey. Boat, a friend will visit the consultant. Bouquet, one of the luckiest of symbols, staunch friends, success, a happy marriage. Bridge, a favorable journey. Building, a removal. Bull, slander by some enemy. Bush, an invitation into society. Butterfly, success and pleasure. Camel, a burden to be patiently borne. Cannon, good fortune. Car, motor, and carriage. Approaching wealth, visits from friends. Cart, fluctuations of fortune. Castle, an unexpected fortune or a legacy. Cat, difficulties caused by treachery. Cathedral, great prosperity. Cattle, prosperity. Chain, an early marriage. If broken, trouble is in store. Chair, an addition to the family. Church, a legacy. Circles, money or presents. They mean that the person whose fortune is read may expect money or presents. Clouds, serious trouble. If surrounded by dots, financial success. Clover, a very lucky sign, happiness and prosperity. At the top of the cup it will come quickly. As it nears the bottom, it will meet more or less distant. Cock, much prosperity. Coffin, long sickness or sign of death of a near relation or great friend. Comet, misfortune and trouble. Compasses, a sign of traveling as a profession. Cow, a prosperous sign. Cross, a sign of trouble and delay, or even death. Crown, success and honor. Crown and cross, signifies good fortune resulting from death. Dagger, favors from friends. Deer, quarrels, disputes, failure in trade. Dog, a favorable sign, faithful friends. If at top of cup, in middle of cup, they are untrustworthy. At the bottom means secret enemies. Donkey, a legacy long awaited. Dove, a lucky symbol, progress in prosperity and affection. Dragon, great and sudden changes. Duck, increase of wealth by trade. Eagle, honor and riches through change of residence. Elephant, a lucky sign, good health. Falcon, a persistent enemy. Ferret, active enemies. Fish, good news from abroad. If surrounded by dots, immigration. Flag, danger from wounds inflicted by an enemy. Fleur-de-lis, same as lily. Flowers, good fortune, success, a happy marriage. Fox, treachery by a trusted friend. Frog, success in love and commerce. Gallows, a sign of good luck. Goat, a sign of enemies and of misfortune to a sailor. Goose, happiness, a successful venture. Grasshopper, a great friend will become a soldier. Greyhound, a good fortune by strenuous exertion. Gun, a sign of discord and slander. Hammer, triumph over adversity. Hand, to be read in conjunction with neighboring symbols and according to what it points. Hare, a sign of a long journey or the return of an absent friend, also of a speedy and fortunate marriage to those who are single. Harp, marriage, success in love. Hat, success in life. Hawk, an enemy. Heart, pleasures to come, if surrounded by dots, through money, if accompanied by a ring, through marriage. Heavenly bodies, sun, moon, and stars, signifies happiness and success. Hen, increase of riches or an addition to the family. Horse, desires fulfilled through a prosperous journey. Horseshoe, a lucky journey or success in marriage and choosing a partner. Hourglass, imminent peril. House, success in business. Human figures must be judged according to what they appear to be doing. They are generally good and denote love and marriage. Interrogation, mark of doubt or disappointment. Ivy, honor and happiness through faithful friends. Jackal, a sly animal who need not be feared, a mischief maker of no account. Jockey, successful speculation. Jug, good health. Kangaroo, a rival in business or love. Kettle, death. Key, money, increasing trade, and a good husband or wife. Kite, a sign of lengthy voyaging and travel leading to honor and dignity. Knife, warning of disaster through quarrels and enmity. Ladder, a sign of travel. Leopard, a sign of emigration with subsequent success. Letters, shown by square or oblong tea leaves, signifies news. Initials near will show surnames of writers. If accompanied by dots, they will contain money. If unclouded, good, but if fixed about by clouds, bad news or loss of money. Lily, at top of cup, health and happiness, a virtuous wife. At bottom, anger and strife. Lines indicate journeys in their direction, read in conjunction with other signs of travel. Wavy lines denote troublesome journeys or losses therein. Lion, greatness through powerful friends. Lynx, danger of divorce or break-off of an engagement. Man, a visitor arriving. If the arm is held out, he brings a present. If figure is very clear, he is dark. If indistinct, he is of light complexion. Mermaid, misfortune, especially to seafaring persons. Mitre, a sign of honor to a clergyman or through religious agency. Monkey, the consultant will be deceived in love. Moon, as a crescent, prosperity and fortune. Mountain, powerful friends. Many mountains, equally powerful enemies. Mouse, danger of poverty through theft or swindling. Mushroom, sudden separation of lovers after a quarrel. Nosegay, the same as bouquet. Numbers, depends on symbols in conjunction with them. Oak, very lucky, long life, good health, profitable business, and a happy marriage. Oblong figures, family or business squabbles. Owl, an evil omen, indicative of sickness, poverty, disgrace. A warning against commencing any new enterprise. If the consultant be in love, he or she will be deceived. Palm tree. Good luck. Success in any undertaking. A sign of children to a wife and of speedy marriage to a maid. Parrot. A sign of emigration for a lengthy period. Peacock. Denotes success and the acquisition of property. Also a happy marriage. Pear. Great wealth and improved social position, success in business, and to a woman, a wealthy husband. Pedestrian. Good news, an important appointment. Pheasant. A legacy. Pig. Good and bad luck mixed. A faithful lover, but envious friends. Pigeons. Important news of flying. If addressed, domestic bliss and wealth acquired in trade. Pine tree. Continuous happiness. Pistol. Disaster. Rabbit. Fair success in a city or large town. Rat. Treacherous servants. Losses through enemies. Raven. Death for the aged. Disappointments in love. Divorce. Failure in business. And trouble generally. Razor. Lovers' quarrels and separation. Reptile. Quarrels. Rider. Good news from overseas regarding financial prospects. Rifle. A sign of discord and strife. Ring. A ring means marriage, and if a letter can be found near it, this is the initial of a future spouse. If clouds are near the ring, an unhappy marriage. If all is clear about it, the contrary. A ring right at the bottom means the wedding will not take place. Rose. A lucky sign betokening good fortune and happiness. Sore. Trouble brought about by strangers. Scales. A lawsuit. Scepter. A sign of honor from royalty. Scissors. Quarrels, illness, separation of lovers. Serpent. Spiteful enemies. Bad luck. Illness. Shark. Danger of death. Sheep. Success. Prosperity. Ship. A successful journey. Snakes are a sign of bad omen. Great caution is needed to ward off misfortunes. Spider. A sign of money coming to the consultant. Squares. Comfort and peace. Star. A lucky sign. If surrounded by dots, foretells great wealth and honors. Steeple. Bad luck. Straight line. A journey, very pleasant. Straight lines are an indication of peace, happiness, and long life. Swallow. A journey with a pleasant ending. Swan. Good luck and a happy marriage. Sword. Dispute. Quarrels between lovers. A broken sword. Victory of an enemy. Timber. Logs of timber indicate business success. Toad. Deceit and unexpected enemies. Trees. A lucky sign. A sure indication of prosperity and happiness, surrounded by dots. A fortune in the country. Triangles. Always a sign of good luck and unexpected legacies. Trident. Success and honors in the navy. Twisted figures. Disturbances and vexation. Grievances if there are many such figures. Umbrella. Annoyance and trouble. Unicorn. Scandal. Vulture. Bitter foes. Wagon. A sign of approaching poverty. Wavy lines. If long and waved, denote losses and vexations. The importance of the lines depends on the number of them and if heavy or light. Wheel. An inheritance about to fall in. Windmill. Success in an adventurous enterprise. Wolf. Beware of jealous intrigues. Woman. Pleasure and happiness. If surrounded by dots, wealth or children. Several women indicate scandal. Wood. A speedy marriage. Worms indicate secret foes. Yacht, pleasure and happiness. Yew tree indicates the death of an aged person who will leave those possessions to the consultant. Zebra, travel and adventure in foreign lands. And with that long list, which I'm sure has put pretty much everyone who's listening to sleep, I'm going to call it a night. So far, this is a rather charming little read, and I'm about halfway through. So if you'd like to pick up where I'm leaving off, as usual, you can find it on Project Gutenberg at the link in the show notes. Thanks again for joining me on this episode of Sleepy Time Tales, the podcast designed around a bedtime story to help you to get a restful night. New episodes will be released every Sunday night to give you something fresh to help you rest in a new week. But make sure to subscribe in whatever service you use so that you get new episodes whenever they come out. A reminder that the music for tonight is Sweet Night and Friends by Kumiku. Check out more of their work on their website, which you'll find linked in the show notes. Good night, and sweet dreams.